My name's Scott Goodwin. I'm the COO and CTO of DigitalXRAID. And joining me on this webinar, I've got Callum Bryant, our Head of Penetration Testing. He's going to talk to you about how and why someone may target your business with ransomware. I've got Alan Freeland, our SOC Manager. He's going to demonstrate how ransomware attacks can quickly and efficiently be contained by our Advanced Threat Detection and Response team. And last but no means least, we have Kerry Jones, our Head of Compliance, who's going to take us through how a security framework can bolster your defense against cybersecurity threats. Next slide, please, Alan. Ransomware is on the rise, despite being a really old method of cyber attack. So the first known occurrence of ransomware was released in 1989 at the World Health Organization AIDS conference. And yeah, it was spread through floppy disks. If some of you are old enough to remember those, these infected users who were then instructed to send $189 to a post office address. Now, this particular strain, it was pretty easy to unencrypt and fix relatively quickly. However, it was the start of a methodology, or a proof of concept, if you like, that's now been replicated, fine-tuned, and developed into the more autonomous and complex strains that we see today. And if you think about that period, it's astonishing that computing, securing our digital lives has advanced so much, yet we're still plagued by a 30-year-old method that manages to cause havoc for us. If we also think back to the WannaCry outbreak, this was a bit of a turning point, really, in the evolution of ransomware, because now we had a strain of ransomware that didn't just infect a single user, it actually started to spread itself using known vulnerabilities to other devices on the same networks. So there's a catalog of reasons why we see that ransomware is on the rise, but we of course suffered the effects of the global pandemic. That caused a lot of people to radically change how they were working, rush into the remote working sphere, and changes that would have necessarily taken months were done in a matter of weeks, which obviously opened up opportunities for would-be hackers to infiltrate people and look for vulnerabilities as people deployed these systems. As well, we've now got remote workers. They're no longer in their corporate environments, so they're in less controlled environments than what they were normally would be tied down to, and you've got them using their own broadband. You don't know who's coming into their houses. You don't know what they're doing with confidential data. So there's quite a few things around the pandemic that could cause the rise in ransomware. There's also ransomware as a service now is where you can go onto the dark web and you can get access to what is complicated malware just by buying it or renting it from these criminals, and then sharing the spoils of the attack with others to exploit on the dark web. So it's very, very easy to get hold of some software. You don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be a developer or write your own software to have a pretty sophisticated ransomware or malware strain. Access as a service options on the cybercrime underground mean that there's ready-made selection of targets. So when people get hold of these password dumps, when people see that businesses have got vulnerabilities or they've got potential infrastructure that's available publicly, then they'll post these onto these access as a service sort of sales forums, and then people can just buy these lists and try their hand at trying to get some malware in there or exfiltrating the organizations. Secondly, organizations are just failing to address deficiencies in the cybersecurity posture, which is allowing these guys to thrive. It's such an easy thing, really, if people are not following vulnerability patching, and phishing. If we're not training our users how to detect or how to react to a phishing email, it's such an easy vector. The criminals will invoke a sense of panic to make you do something or induce an action that would infiltrate their machine, and it's a very easy way, and you can cast a big net. You just need basically a huge list of email addresses and you've got lots of potential targets. Also, after gaining a foothold in networks, we see the use of many legitimate tools such as Cobalt Strike, PSExec, where they're then able to laterally move, sit in networks, sit in the infrastructure, not necessarily activate the ransomware there and then, sit there, try and glean data, and then do it at a later date without setting off any alarms. So it's a complex environment at the moment. And thirdly, victims keep paying. So as long as people keep able to get money out of victims, then they're going to keep doing it. So again, we always advise our customers never to pay the ransomware, but when people are trying to react quickly or I don't have any plans in place and they're just like, I need to get back online right now, then obviously they're being pressured into this, and sometimes they're not even being given the decryption key after payment. So, you need to bear that in mind. It's not that you're definitely going to get your data back. And also, what's happened to any stolen data? Have they deleted it? How can you get proof? These are not legitimate entities. They're not going to give you a certificate of destruction or tell you a retention policy or any of those things. They're literally doing it on face value. So yeah, this is why we see this apparent rise in ransomware attacks. It's just so cheap and effective. So now I'm going to hand over to Callum, who's going to take you through the what, why, and how a ransomware attack may be orchestrated in more detail.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to go through a few different things. So firstly, it's going to be common misconceptions, the why, and then the how. So a few common misconceptions about kind of what ransomware is. For those of you that don't really know what ransomware is, it's a malicious piece of software that's designed to block access to computer systems, servers, until, like Scott said, some of money has been paid. Now, with obviously the development of technology, now Scott mentioned that this used to be kind of just paid to a post box. Now attackers are obviously using technology such as cryptocurrency, which is obviously a lot easier to achieve and harder to track. So some of the misconceptions are that it wouldn't happen to me. So during the first wave of COVID, we were involved with one of the UK's largest medical facilities. They've been offering their beds for usage in London while the Nightingales were commissioned, and also active in research and development of the vaccine. Now, although hacking groups said they would not target pharma or healthcare, they were hacked and held to ransom with the threat of a large volume of customer data being leaked on the internet. So this is kind of one of those demonstrations that attackers and hackers really don't mind who they go for. They have no morals, and as Scott said, it is all about face value. There is a story in which a law firm was ransomwared, very small group. They were probably only a company size of 20, and their external third-party IT department actually got compromised due to weak credentials. A script went onto their system and then got distributed out into the law firm through their supply chain. So hackers and attackers will pick absolutely anyone to try and achieve ransomware. So second misconception is the fact that it's just kids mucking around. This is normally referred to as just kind of script kiddies or people playing with code or just trying their luck. Ransomware is normally and most commonly executed by well-organized criminal gangs. These organized criminals will pick on anyone. It's a lot more profitable for criminal gangs to extort businesses. It's a lot easier than, for example, trying to just burgle your home or steal your car, because data is so much more valuable. And lastly on this list, we don't have the resources to monitor all the time. So this is where it's most common effective to engage a specialist security provider who has the staff and can advise on the technology to ensure you're monitoring all of your assets. Meantime, the detection is key. So many people do not even realize that they have been compromised for months. So hackers will sometimes lay dormant. This is where the code will be either sitting on the server and just trying to propagate before it's even had maybe like an execute switch, which will then obviously start executing code and start the encryption process. So obviously scanning of your systems on a regular basis is obviously significantly important. We could move on. So this is the why part about ransomware. So hackers can utilize ransomware for multiple reasons. Some are obviously political. I'm sure a few of you have heard of the hacking group Anonymous. Now, sometimes they do get involved. They don't necessarily execute ransomware, but they can obviously go for a political stance. Some are for shock value. So this is the kind of the clients that dictate that their security is some of the best. And a lot of ransomware can actually be done to prove the fact that it's just a challenge. Some hackers just don't even do like see the world burn and will go after anyone who claims they are uncrackable. And more prominently, which is the one that we always see, it's financial gain. So using cryptocurrency, like Scott said, it's not always just as soon as you pay once, you get your data back. So the financial gain is the most prominent one as to why people are using ransomware. So there has actually been a significant increase in double extortion. So this is where an attack will not only encrypt the data, but also steal sensitive data. Now, Microsoft had noticed that the evolution to double extortion is really interesting because most enterprises will have strong backups, recovery systems, and therefore not really prone into giving into the blackmail because they can revert back. Now, like I mentioned, attackers could leave code on servers propagating, and what they could actually be doing is exfiltrating data prior to encrypting it. So that would therefore render all of your backup systems essentially useless. So if we just move on to the next one. So what you'll see here, so all ransomware needs an entry point. Now, there are different methods in this, some of which we could actually utilize as well. So whether it's using a USB drop, so something which might have something that looks nice, so a PDF on there that says password list or something, someone accidentally plugs it in, opens the file, the ransomware spread. This is a lot harder to execute. You'd either have to kind of go to the site or send it via post. I suppose next in that list is breaches. So like we talked about, there's a lot of public information out there. If you've got a VPN service, which I know a lot of people implemented due to COVID and remote working, public information in data breaches is fantastic. We've utilized it in successful red team attacks as well, essentially allowing an attacker onto your network and they can then distribute it themselves. But most commonly, it is through phishing attacks. So 90% of security breaches in companies are a result of phishing attacks. And this is a fantastic way into actually executing ransomware. So the image on the left is an example of a phishing exercise. This is something that we use. This is one of our templates that I've taken. And the idea being that not every piece of downloadable content is malicious. So what an attacker could do, and this is something that I've seen in the past, is where the file itself will go away to somewhere like Pastebin or GitHub and pull down the ransomware itself. So although mail filters do scan for content and will scan files, essentially that file doesn't look malicious. So because staff are trusting certain files and from untrusted sources, the code is then instantly onto that device and then goes off to somewhere like Pastebin to actually execute it. The image on the right, common ransomware kind of warning. I'm sure if you Googled anything on ransomware and just looked at the images, you'll see all the various ones. This is actually an example of one that we've seen as well. And as you can see from it, it's kind of asking for the money and where the Bitcoin should be translated to. So by tricking users into downloading and executing malicious files, the ransomware will start propagating across the network and encrypting files as the sole purpose of infecting as many machines as possible. From, I suppose, a pen testing perspective, user training is where it's going to be extremely valuable. I mean, a lot of you are going to be IT professionals yourselves in the security space. If you have everyone in the company with all their eyes looking out for security awareness, looking at files, should they be downloading certain things, you're going to have a much better security posture for any organization. So I'm now going to pass over to Alan, who's going to discuss the ransomware from the defensive side.
Thanks very much, Callum. So today I'm going to show you all a little bit of a demo of how we visualize ransomware from the perspective of a SIEM platform and a little bit about how we can deal with it using EDR. Now, you may have never heard of the terms before. This may be the first time you've come across it, or you may have be well versed in it. But I will just do it for everyone in the room who maybe does not know. So a SIEM, or SIM as it may be called, or USM, Unified Security Management Platform, it's effectively a bird's eye view into activity across your network. It allows threats to be more easily identified and remediated faster. Now, what is an EDR? EDR is effectively more advanced AV antivirus that allows real-time continuous monitoring and sort of endpoint data analytics. So it allows us to do a whole lot more on the system than just AV. You'll see me refer to the ransomware as malware a lot in this demo. That's because, for anyone who doesn't know, ransomware is a form of malware. So we're going to do a little bit of a scenario. Callum is, in fact, became a bad guy. He sent out the phishing email to people. He's decided a life of crimes for him. Someone's got this malicious email, clicked on the malicious link, and downloaded ransomware onto their system. So this video is very fast. As you can appreciate, there's a lot going on in a ransomware incident. There's a lot to take in. So I understand there's a lot going on in this screen here, and I'll try to explain it as best as I can. First screen here is the main dashboard screen. So on the scene, you've got multiple endpoints connected to it. So you've got everything across your estate, your endpoints, your servers, you've even got stuff in the cloud connected to this here. Now, when ransomware goes off, it tends to light up like a Christmas tree. And this is what you can see by the alarms it's generated. Alarms generate off at events, and you may also know them as alerts. But as you can see, there's a lot here, and that tends to be the case when ransomware kicks off. Dial in a bit to the alarm here, and you can see sort of the method that's going on, the strategy intent related to the source of malware. Up near the top, you can also see the malware family has been identified as Pony, and a little bit about the source and destination here. Drill in a bit more, and again, this is just the same information from the quick pane, sort of spread out a bit more across the screen, and we'll look to dial into the event here. Again, the event's got all the information that's contained in the alarm and a little bit more. So as you're looking to investigate ransomware, you'll be looking at all this information. You know, where is it coming from? Where is it trying to dial out to? You know, what family, malware family is it related to? Where in your network has this been picked up? And this event also has the raw log, the formatted log, and a bit about the payload itself, as we can see here, which is very useful in tracking down, you know, what type of malware it is. So we go back to the main dashboard here, and we're looking to take some actions as part of this investigation. So as part of the investigation, we're going to create a rule that automatically files off whenever malware has been detected, that will automatically get the user information. This will help us ascertain the extent of the malware. Is it just one user affected? Is it multiple users affected? And just plays into that. We've got a golden hour when malware kicks off, where we want to get as much information about the event as possible. This is just demonstrating some of the other actions we could take. We could, you know, isolate the machine, get system info, get some of the services running, the processes, just as part of that forensic piece, that investigation. But we're going to gather the users first. I'm going to strip this rule down. These rules can be created to be very specific if you're looking for certain information, but we just want to know when malware events take place, when we detect any type of malware, we want to get the users to ascertain the extent of the users affected. This just saves this being manually done every single time, so it saves a bit of time, and time is crucial in these sort of events. So the rule's been created. I'm going to refresh the sort of page a bit and go into the events. That should fire off now. And here it is here at the top. Now, trust me here, this is very small, and I know this is very small, but the user's been gathered, and the little screen down the sort of bottom here, the user's been reported back to us as the username Alan in this case. This allows us to get to work on tracking down this user, isolating the machine. Again, there could be multiple users or multiple events associated with this investigation. So we're going to look a little bit about more how we can integrate with various things across your estate to manage them from a central console. You know, a lot of people say that the kind of more you add, the more things you've got, the more complicated, the more dashboards you need to look at, the more platforms you need to log into. This is a demonstration here how we can integrate with various technologies you have and take actions from here to stop threats. As you can see, there's a few that you may notice on this screen here. It's not an exhaustive list. This demo has not got everything. There's a whole lot more. And it's showing you sort of things we can do here. We can update firewall rules. We can use your EDR to disconnect machines, clean up machines. We can use your vulnerability scanners to kick off vulnerability scans and report from there. So it's really useful having this centralized location where we can manage and run everything and see everything as such. And we can even integrate with ticketing platforms you use if you don't want to use a ticketing platform on the SIEM solution itself, you can export that or engage with that through this platform, should you need be. So there's a whole list of things you can do, gather forensic data, stuff that I spoke about earlier, grab lists of processes, services, users, etc. Everything that's going on is mapped here, which is, it's again a time saver. And like I said, that's crucial in these events. Again, I appreciate there's a lot going on in these screens here, and this is very fast, and it may be unfamiliar to a lot of you. If, after the call, you want to see how this relates to your tech stack, or you want to do a deeper dive into this, then please reach out and we'd be happy to show you how it works and how it would work in your environment as such with what you have. Right, so that's a bit about visualizing, taking some actions in terms of the investigation and how we can interact with other technologies. Let's do a bit about the cleanup. So what you can see now is the sort of user side, the affected user side. This would be their desktop, and this would be them executing the malware on their system. On this particular endpoint, we have an EDR technology, which is Sentinel-1 in this instance, but it could be Defender, Carbon Black, whatever you have in terms of your EDR technology. And this is how we can respond to malware and perform actions to remediate it. This is quite a well annotated video, so it doesn't really need me to narrate, but it's not got good music, so I will talk as we go along. So as you can see here, the user is executing the malware. They've downloaded the malicious payload that Calm sent them. Sentinel-1's picked up that there's a threat. Now, this is in detect mode, so various EDR platforms have detect mode and protect mode. Detect mode is where it will alert you to threats, but you need to manually take actions. Protect mode is an automated, it will take actions when it detects threats. So as you can see, all the users' files here are being encrypted in real time. And here's the warning message to pay up that Callum showed earlier on. So this is how we'd see it back in the sort of SIEM platform that I showed you before. This is a sort of dashboard to display all that, and this is how we would investigate this particular incident on the platform in sort of real time. Again, just what I showed you before, lights up like a Christmas tree, got the malware infection here picked up. And we can see here again, the quick page shows you all the properties related to the malware, and you can investigate it in here. But like I said earlier, it could be exported out and investigated on other platforms should you have another platform or preference. A little bit more on this screen, we're going to use the Sentinel-1 hook to interact with the Sentinel-1 console through this SIEM platform. Most of these connection hooks take place via API and allows us to perform various things, as said. So we're looking to roll back this malware to a previous state when the system was known to be clean, and that's what we're going to perform in this instance. This is it, performing the cleanup, and we'll go back to the sort of user's point of view in a second. As you can see here in sort of real time, it will start reversing all the effects of the ransomware. As if it never happened. We're once again safe. So one of the kind of common questions I would get around this is if I can pick one or the other, if I can't get a SIEM and EDR, why would I not just have EDR if I can clean up all my ransomware threats? I would rather see the threat with a SIEM technology than wholly trust an EDR platform. So the malware family in the previous video, Pony, it's a bit of an older one now, but when it first came out, it was known to disable EDR technologies to deploy ransomware. So by putting that full trust in one technology, without no way to sort of visualize your network, I would say that's a scarier thought than having, I'd rather have the sort of visualization of what's going on than just completely trust one technology to be doing it for me. So that's it from my side. I will pass over to Kerry Jones now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. So I'm just going to give you a little snippet as to how a security framework can help you with ransomware, really, and how you would respond as a business. So what is a security framework? So a security framework is a structure that any business can implement and work towards, and they allow businesses to identify their information assets, put in boundaries, manage risks, and identify any incidents that could have any further impact, such as reputational damage or financial loss. So why would you implement either an ISMS or a NIST framework? So ISO 27001 is a set of security controls that a business would implement and should implement and evidence to achieve certification. And then upon that, you would mature your framework and your management system and strengthen that through continual improvements. NIST is a best practice framework that allows any business to mature and develop what's currently in place to strengthen their security posture. So why would we put these in place? Next slide, Alan. So how do these frameworks help you with ransomware? So they allow businesses to implement a risk framework. So this is allowing any business to understand what risks you've got in place and your appetite for risks, and how we identify and respond to weaknesses such as ransomware. It allows a business to put incident response plans in place and allow you to understand if they're effective. So assign responsibilities and who is responsible for what types of incidents and how they should be reported through your incident response processes. Awareness training is absolutely vital to any company with regards to, how we report an incident, how we report a risk or anything like that. So you need to ensure that all your employees have got the relevant awareness training of what to do when an incident occurs, how it should be reported, because at the end of the day, your employees are your first line of defence. So therefore, training needs to be provided to ensure there's no adverse effects on your business. And also you should be conducting risk assessments on various processes within your business, as this will allow you to understand if you need any additional controls to strengthen your security posture. These could include things like penetration testing or the monitoring of your assets and people through a security operations centre. Next slide, Alan. This slide is just a bit of information for everybody on the call. You may be aware, you may not be aware, but there has been some updates to ISO 27001 and the current standard. It was reviewed in October 2022. So there's been some revisions there. The whole layout of it has changed. So it's now been broken down into 4 key areas with regard to the Annex A controls. So these are looking at organisation controls, people, physical and technological controls. So before you used to have your HR section in Annex 7, that's now all being combined to anything that, would affect the people. The controls have been reduced, yet there's additional ones. So there's now 93 controls with an additional 11. So a lot of them are being amalgamated. So you're now having to consider things like threat intelligence, information that's going to be deleted and how you monitor and measure that, and then obviously monitor activities, whether that's people or devices. So that was just to give you a bit of background of the changes, and if you are certified, what is to come your way, or if you're thinking of getting certified, what we now have to start thinking about. So I'll hand you back over to Scott Goodwin to carry on.
Thanks, guys. So so now that begs the question, what should you do next? Next slide, please, Alan. So first of all, you should ask yourself these questions. So we spoke about in previous slides about, it never happened to me. So first of all, profile the threat. Is it that you are doing large transactions? Is it that you're a financial institute, or are you just a service business and you don't have much of an IT footprint? It doesn't really matter what you do. There is going to be someone out there who, if they can scan your infrastructure, or if they can target your business, or find any sort of low-hanging fruit or loophole, they will exploit that to their advantage. So first of all, think about that. So put those in. Is it that you could have a grievance with an employee? So what could the actions be that they could take, and start doing risk assessment against that? So would you know how to identify and recover from a serious infection? So again, we covered off how we would react to that through what Alan went through on the demonstration. So have you guys got the skill set? Have you got the tools? Have you got the technology? Have you got the way to identify and then subsequently recover from a serious infection? So again, lending into what Kerry said, have you got a framework for incident response? Have you done any sort of roundtable exercises? Do you understand where the responsibility lies within your business or your third parties when it comes to responding to incidents? And look at all those things. For instance, if you're an online business, what would it mean to you if your website went down? Which lends us to the, do you understand the potential impact on your organization? What would that impact be of downtime? Say, if you were an e-commerce business and your website was down for 24 hours, what is the loss expectancy? When an organization is breached, the focus has to be on rapid threat detection and incident response, because it's that mean time to detection that's so important. Because like we've discussed previously in the deck, now ransomware will spread to other machines. It's not just going to be contained to an isolated user. It could quickly emanate and infect 10, 20, 30 more machines and cause you a real big issue. As well, you're not sure what's gone on in the background. It's evolved again. They're stealing data now, and they're holding that data. They're not just encrypting it, they're getting a copy of it off-site into their world. So again, you need to stop that as soon as possible. The fallout itself isn't just the ransomware cost either. It's the downtime, the IT overtime to fix the systems, the lost productivity of your business, potential reputational damage, or even class action lawsuits in the event of a serious breach, especially with GDPR, ICO going to be on your back if you've got personal data out there, etc. So again, when we say, what should I do next? One clear thing is follow best practice. So there's so many guides out there now. Cybersecurity is a big, it's a hot topic in the industry, in the UK especially. The NCSC have got some great guides out there. Follow frameworks like what Kerry was talking about, ISO 27001. Cyber Essentials is a great framework as well to start on this journey if you're not sure what to do next. Alan? So take the first steps to safeguard your business. So first of all, you need to understand your assets. So what have you got? What assets are in your business? Is it just laptop users? What cloud services are you using? And more importantly, what are you doing with those cloud services? So if it's CRMs, have you got potentially PII in there? Have you got employee data in there? What are you using for your HR systems? Are they cloud-based? Where is that stored? Make sure that you understand where all those assets are and what they contain. Once you've done that, look to implement some robust controls. So who's got access to those systems? How are they accessed? Have we got password policies? Have we got multi-factor authentication? Some of the basic steps can be taken on multiple platforms to improve these controls. Have you got a means of rapid detection? So if something does happen, I mean, and it could be the employee base, like what Kerry said. They're the first line of defense. Make sure that they're educated, and then they become rapid detection. As soon as they see something happen, say they get a strange email in, even if they don't execute it, they should be the ones to alert you to it so that you can then make sure that no one else falls foul to the same email, and they become a rapid detection. Then you've got the EDR, you've got the SIEM capabilities from monitoring, all these things in place that you can build on top of that from a technology point of view. Make sure you've got an effective response. So by this, I mean, don't let this happen and then test your processes. Make sure that you're doing a run through, you've got an effective plan, you've got a response capability in-house, you've got a plan of who to call, when to call. Even something as simple as a call tree is going to be of real benefit, especially if you've got outsourced IT, anything like that. Make sure you run through that and everyone in that knows their roles and responsibility to effectively respond. Be in a position to recover quickly. Again, you're only going to know that by acting it out. Make sure you've got the tools, you've got the capability, to recover quickly with its backup, be it you need to get hold of someone, maybe it's you are outsourcing some of your security and you need to engage with that third party, but make sure it doesn't take a long time. We know what to do. We're not running around, because these are high stress situations when you're dealing with an incident. And then again, like I've covered off, planning and testing is just essential. You need to run through these scenarios, think of common scenarios. We ourselves run roundtables for people where we'll come up with a particular scenario that gets worse over the period of a day, and we throw a few curveballs in there, but then it's getting people thinking, making sure that the right people know how to react. And where are the gaps within the organization? You know, is it that we don't have that covered? Oh, well, I'm not sure will that be? You know, all these questions and all these things come out when you work through your planning and testing. So it is essential to go through those steps. Next slide, Alan. So that concludes the webinar. Thanks again for your time. If we have got a Q&A section on the webinar, if you want to post any questions for myself and the team. So this one's probably good for you, Alan. Would you go SIEM plus EDR or just MDR?
Yeah, it kind of leans into a bit about what I said earlier on, about having, you know, one or the other. You know, some SIEM technologies, depending on how you use them, can lean a bit into the sort of EDR side, but isn't a replacement for a sort of full EDR. There's also, depending on where you go in the industry, some people will label EDR, MDR, XDR differently. So if we are, you know, talking about the technologies on their own, you know, if you can do a SIEM plus EDR, and make it an MDR or XDR. That's, you know, XDR is the automated evolution of all these kind of components. And yeah, if you've got the budget and you can stretch to that, then yeah, go the full hog, but take a risk-based approach. Some of these technologies can be really expensive to implement everywhere. So you know, you want to sit down and, like Kerry said and Scott said, and plan out, you know, what are our critical assets, target them first for these technologies, and then if you've got the budget to spread them out, then do that. But you know, the more defense in depth you've got, the better. But I would definitely start with a SIEM so that you can visualize everything that's going on with your network.
Okay, and then we've got another question. What are the main attack vectors of ransomware? Word, Excel documents, VM files, etc. Callum, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, so we've seen various kind of vectors when it comes to documentation. One of the most common ones, one of the most favorable, is actually macro-enabled documents. So Word and Excel both would obviously fall victim to that. Macro-enabled documents are really quite helpful. From macros, you can run stuff like CMD, you can run stuff like PowerShell just from the macro-enabled document. So if your business doesn't need macros, having the protection to make sure macros are disabled by default is obviously a great way to prevent against that. There's some really good tips and tricks on macros where you can simply run it. It will boot up a CMD window, and like I said earlier, it can go out to somewhere like Pastebin. These are potentially just the foothold. It's not necessarily even holding anything malicious, but could be used as a way outbound. We don't really see too much in VMware files. If I'm honest, it's normally the executables. Like I said, it's going to be anything that can go out and retrieve them. So if your device maybe shouldn't be allowed to, or maybe a user shouldn't be able to use PowerShell or CMD, those are great programs to block, especially from an IT perspective. They will help restrict outbound access. Again, Pastebin, GitHub, any hacking sites, firewall rules, they'll help block those as well. Even if a file like a macro was enabled and then CMD was run in a way, if you're blocking your ingress and egress traffic appropriately, you'd soon identify those.
Well, thanks. Then we got another question. Hello, when ransomware is attacked, can the USM system automatically disable network connectivity? It can.
Another one for
Alan.
Yeah. And in short, the answer is yes. When we go back to the demo, and again, I know there was a lot going on there when we were building the rule to get the user's information. We can use that same sort of method to take other actions like disable the network card. Now, A lot of clients, when we say we can disable the network card automatically, would go, I'm not too sure on that, because if you're disabling someone from working in the middle of the night, if there's someone high up in the organisation, or it's a critical system that's maybe performing something, and this detection turns out to be a false flag as such, a false positive, then that can have other consequences in your organisations. Sure, if you're entirely happy to do that, it can be set up to take that automated response of disabling a network card should a malware alert fire. But yeah, that again is something you need to consider from a sort of risk-based approach. What would happen if this was disabled and the user can't access anything, and it turns out to be a false positive as such? It looks like ransomware, but it turns out it's not, and we've disabled the network card.
Thanks, Alan.
No worries.
So another question on document type. So are hackers targeting document type files, Word, Excel, PowerPoint to encrypt, or system files, or both?
So it's kind of everything. So hackers will target the entire system. So like we showed with the example, it was the pop-up, and Alan's example showed that it was just the images that go encrypted. We've seen scenarios in which a large distribution company that we went in and helped, they had their entire systems encrypted. So that meant that Explorer didn't work. So you couldn't navigate through files. The whole thing was just a mess. And it meant that whole service had to be rebuilt. I suppose depending on the type of organization you are, they might target specific documents. If you're a financial business, they might target Excel sheets to block specific target types. But ultimately, I think with ransomware, they don't necessarily encrypt just a particular file. So it's not just Word or Excel or PowerPoint. It's system files. It's everything that you've potentially got. Because like we said in the kind of the why, it is potentially political or shock resource available. So ultimately, you're going to pay more and be more likely to pay if the entire system is bricked. If the whole thing is encrypted and you can't work, like Scott said, the impact to the organization, you're losing money, your business is offline for hours. Like I said, in my example with the law firm was down for 2 days, which obviously had a significant impact because they weren't able to help clients, they weren't able to go to court or anything of the like. So they don't target specific file types of any kind. I would say they probably go for everything.
If you're a hybrid multi-cloud environment, can you use and fuse it all into one picture out of the box? Do I need to procure separate CASBs? Alan, this is for you.
You can bring it all in using that particular tool. Now, there's various SIEM products on the market. Some can do more than others. The particular one we've shown you today can fuse it all into one picture. So that's your cloud, your on-prem, your people, whether they're working from home. It pulls all those technologies into one picture, and that's the sort of beauty of it all. It pulls it in out the box, so to speak. There is a little buy-in to get it set up, but the connections, it's not the most complex system to set up in terms of building those initial connections. Where the sort of time investment's really required is to tune those platforms to filter out all the noise. When you make these connections out the box, it's wild. You're seeing everything, you're ingesting absolutely everything into the system, and it's looking at all that data, making correlations and building stories, and it fires off a lot of alarms. And as I alluded to earlier with Sam's question, that can lead to a lot of false positives and a lot of sort of overhead. So the key time investment is tuning those platforms and building those rules and use cases out, so that when you do get an alert that's fired off, it is something that's genuine, and that's where you want to get. So yeah, out the box, it's very easy to connect it all and get that picture going. But you'll find there's a lot going on, and not even just from the security point of view. You'll find a lot about your configurations across your environment as well, which was also quite interesting to see. It's great what you can see when it's that one picture as such across your whole environment. It really tells a big story.
And then we got another question. Can you tell us which software on demonstrated? So yeah, it was the AT&T USM Anywhere and Sentinel one. Used for the EDR demonstration.
Yep.
I don't think we've got any more questions now. I'll just close with the goal of DigitalXRAID is to secure organizations and individuals from the effects of cybercrime. So if there's anything that you want help or advice on that you've seen during this webinar, then please do reach out. We're more than happy to get back to you.